Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about a huge reason why I think guys mess up relationships with girls that they like. Talk about my own experience, how I came to discover this, and hopefully it can help you out now or in the future. So everybody knows the old story. You meet someone, you like them a lot, and they over time kind of don't like you that much. Or on the other side, you meet someone, they like you, they do lots of nice things for you, and then you kind of stop liking them. Why is it like that? Why can't you just meet someone where you just like each other? I think a lot of people have these complaints, so let's go into it a bit more. So I was meeting someone a few weeks ago and we were talking about this. Why can't you just meet someone where there's no control? There's no like, it's more over to this side or over to this side. Sometimes you're more avoidant, sometimes you're more needy. Why is it like that? And they were telling me this story about someone they dated, and they told me in a nutshell, the timeline basically went from they had chemistry very early on in the beginning, and she really liked him and she was finally happy that she met someone that she liked. And then over time, she started to just drift away from him. And one of the reasons was, I think before they broke up, there were a lot of times where he started yelling at her or just getting a bit mad at her because she wasn't, he didn't feel like she liked him. And this obviously frustrated him, and it made him put more pressure on her, and she didn't really know what he wanted or what he expected. So then she started to feel guilty, and then she started to feel resentful, and then that turned into, why should I be changing in order to appease him? Why can't I just be myself? And then it turned into more neediness from him, and then it turned into a huge drop in attraction, and then ultimately the pile of cards came falling down and it was basically over. And I've had this experience myself. I've had it a few times. I think a lot of guys have, especially the first time they ever like a girl. They've still got all these ideas about how love is, especially when you're inexperienced. You think it's like the movies. You think you're supposed to give her flowers. You think you're supposed to be there all the time for her and, you know, crowd her basically and be super needy. And then most guys, they end up getting dumped, and they learn the hard way that, you know, you got to play the game a little bit. You can't be such a wimp, and you can't allow someone to be the master of your emotions, basically, or allow someone to become the center of your universe, because that puts pressure on them. They think there's something wrong with you, and then again, it all just comes crumbling down. So let's dive into male and female love and what is the difference. Well, according to evolutionary psychology, men are more on the idealistic love side and women are more towards the opportunistic love side. Now, it doesn't mean men are idealistic completely and women are completely opportunistic. It just means if there's a scale, men are more to this side and women are more to this side. I've even heard the quote that men are idealists posing as opportunists and women are opportunists posing as idealists. Let me know if you think that's true in the comments. So what does it mean as a man to be an idealistic lover? Well, men needed ideals in order to fight and die in wars for the greater good, right? I guess it's like an evolved strategy, an evolved psychological strategy. Men need ideals, otherwise they probably wouldn't have anything to fight for. They wouldn't have anything to protect people for. They'd just be sort of selfish and hedonistic and do what they wanted to do. Maybe that's where it comes from. I'm not completely sure. But in short, men are much more able to fall in love a lot quicker than women. Men are willing to die a lot quicker without much thought than women. Overall, I saw this TikTok video the other day and a guy ran around and he's like saying, if this bad situation happened and you're with the one woman you love, would you sacrifice yourself? And he interviewed every woman and they all said no, and every guy said, yes, I would. I'd sacrifice myself. So it's this idealistic nature that men have that make them do these things. I think that's probably the strongest theory. So if men are more towards the idealistic side and women are more towards the opportunistic side, then why is that? Do women have evolved traits that favors better chances of survival by being opportunistic? And I think that's more obvious. Women need to, because they were unable to protect themselves back in the ancient times, they needed to discern who's who. And I think that's why women are also better at reading body language, and they overall have better natural social skills and instinct. In the book, The Evolution of Desire, by Dr. David Buss, who's probably the predominant evolutionary psychologist, especially / author, I remember there was a chapter in his book even called The Detective Agency, and it's a chapter dedicated to women's ability to judge body language, vocal tonality, and everything. When they look at someone, they're able to discern who they really are, what they're really like, a lot better than men are. And that's obviously a survival strategy, because if a woman couldn't discern who someone really was, she could end up with that guy's baby, and then that guy could be a bad pick, and then she's alone with a baby. Nobody wants to help her, take care of her. You know, being pregnant without a stable man in your life, back in ancient times, often meant you're basically toast, you're dead. So women evolved to have more of a discerning, careful mating strategy when it comes to choosing a mate. Whereas men, I guess because they're able to protect themselves easier, they never really needed that. They never really needed that ability as much as a woman would. So, taking that idea, what happens is, therefore, you get male short-circuiting and male projection, I think. And I think this is where problems start to happen. And projection basically happens in any context because you know what you are, you think the way you think, and we're not naturally inclined to put ourselves in other people's shoes unless we make a concerted effort to do so. So what we tend to do instead is think, all right, I think this way, so if you don't think this way, there's something wrong with you, right? You're projecting. So if a man can fall in love very quickly because he has a more idealistic style of love, and he meets a woman and he feels that strong emotion and she doesn't, then he starts to think there's something wrong with her, whereas she's just living out her mating strategy, which is different from yours. So, you know, that's when the guy's like, what the hell? You know, I'm giving myself, I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve, I want to do all this for you and give you everything, and she's basically not ready. She's still figuring him out. Now, Jordan Peterson was being interviewed by Michaela Peterson, his daughter, and he kind of summed this up really well. And he said something like, because men can love quickly, what they'll often do is they'll meet someone, and if it's a very pronounced and strong attraction from the get-go, the man will start to view her as a princess, and he'll view the princess and he won't be viewing the woman. So he'll have this ideal of what he wants his perfect woman to be, and he thinks he's just found it. And if she doesn't act in the way that ideal that he has, if she's not aligning with that, then he gets mad at her, which is not fair on her. It's a lot of pressure on her because she doesn't even know what that thing is. That's just your ideal. It's not who she is. So he's going after this princess and telling this princess what she needs to be, and he's basically ignoring the woman and who she really is. So then she starts to feel pressured. She doesn't know what the hell he wants. And then she starts to feel guilty because she can't give it to him. He keeps getting mad at her for not, you know, being the ideal that exists only within his head. And then she feels pressure, guilt, and then she's like, screw this, I'm out of here. I don't even know what's up with this guy. And he concludes it with, if you want the woman, you have to give up the princess. And I think the way you give up the princess is you start trying to genuinely get to know the woman, stop looking at her through rose-tinted glasses. And he says, you know, if you want to keep the princess, you have to give up on the woman. And I think, you know, in the end, if you do give up on the woman, she just gets confused, she gets sick of it, guilty, resentful, maybe even mad at herself because she doesn't know what to do, she doesn't know what you really want, because that's not who she is, and the pressure just gets to her, and then it's over. So really, if you want to be with, you know, if you are dating right now someone, and if you want to be with them long term, you do have to realize that you might have this ideal princess that you are viewing her as, and it's not really her, right? And then that can create problems down the line. Because what happens is, when she doesn't give you what you want, because you're projecting, you're like, I like you, why don't you like me? When you're projecting that, you know, you're not seeing her for who she is, right? You've got this ideal, and it's almost like the less she gives you back, or the more frustration that that dynamic creates, because men are the way they are. They're fixers. They want to do things in order to make things better. You just end up pushing and pushing and pushing and trying and trying and trying, and then your attraction basically goes down, and then, you know, you're toast again. So I think fundamentally the problem boils down to male and female timelines, and men not understanding this concept. So a male timeline It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to many of you guys out there. You meet someone and you're like, oh, I like them immediately. You don't even know them. I remember I went to a bar once with a friend of mine, and he met this really cute girl, and he took her outside to like hang out. Maybe one of them wanted a cigarette or something. And he's chatting it to her for like an hour. And I came out, I'm like, where have you been? And he's like, man, this girl over here, she's like really cool, da 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 da. She's so great. I've got like such a strong connection with her. And I was like, tell me 3 things you like about her. And he's like, well, she's hot and... all right, I don't know. I barely know her. Proof's in the pudding. He was looking at the princess. He wasn't looking at the real woman. Because when I asked him about the real woman, he couldn't answer. So back to the timelines. I believe that a man's timeline can be instant. If he's looking at the princess and he's not aware of this concept, then he's just gonna feel what he feels. His emotions are gonna own him. And I think men can fall in love in seconds and minutes. For sure. I think they can already decide immediately. A woman, I would say that her timeline for love is probably weeks and maybe even months. And I've actually heard a year. Now that doesn't mean to say that a woman can't be infatuated or meet a guy and be like, oh, this guy's so hot and he's so great, and then really like him. But I think there's a difference between like and love. You hear women say like, oh, I love him, but I'm not in love with him. Like, I think it's that kind of thing. I think it's the same kind of idea. I think a woman can be completely into you when you first meet and completely attracted to you, sexually attracted to you, want to be with you all the time. But I feel like that can easily be turned around and it can easily vanish. And the proof of that is when a guy is like, oh, she really likes me and I really like her, but he likes her way more actually, or maybe not more, but deeper. His like goes deeper than hers. She's kind of enjoying the moment. So then when he pushes for more and more and more, her attraction, that initial infatuation, can die quicker. It's not the roots of that, how will I say it? The roots of that like or love are not running as deep to her as they are to the guy, I would say. So the guy will get hurt probably in the first few weeks or few months. If they happen to break up, I think a woman can move on a lot easier in that short term. In the long term, maybe it could be harder for the woman to move on because she's dedicated all that time and she's actually allowed herself to fall in love and allow those roots to go deeper. But as the guy, I think if you start acting too crazy in those initial weeks and months, even if she really likes you, again, that can turn off very quickly. Her attraction can start going down the more you start acting needy, the more you start putting pressure on her, making her feel guilty, viewing her not as who she is, but as the princess, which causes all those problems that I talked about earlier. And, you know, that's when problems arise. So what do? Well, basically, you've just got to chill the hell out and realize that concept. Understand that you're a man and you have your style of love and like, and a woman has hers, and it's actually totally different from yours. And while you can have a nice honeymoon period where you have infatuation with each other and you're always, you know, you're never out of the bedroom, all that kind of stuff, do note that you still need to, I think the best advice is continue to be the guy that she met and who she liked. And don't change. Don't add more pressure. Don't add less pressure. Just realize that even though you have a great time together, don't just throw all your cards out on the table. Okay? Still play that game in those initial months. And I think if you chill the hell out and stop projecting idealistic male love onto a woman and telling her that she needs to be like you, I think you have a much better shot at having things work out long term. I think if you just say to yourself right now, okay, the next girl that I like, even if I like her a lot, I'm gonna understand that she might not really like me as much as I like her for 6 months, you know? And just have that in the back of your head and then just conduct yourself in a way that is always remembering that, right? And not projecting that, you know, she should be like you, right? Never, never, ever, ever fight against Mother Nature. She is undefeated. And I think guys complaining about this, complaining that women should be more like this and like this, it's like, well, coulda, shoulda, woulda. This is like those women who complain that men should like overweight women, or men should like, you know, things that don't align with their, you know, evolved, hardwired instincts. This is a woman's evolutionary protection and survival mechanisms that are not going away. So that's what you're complaining about essentially when you date a woman and you feel like she doesn't like you as much as you like her. Just give it time and chill the hell out. And I think this is a huge reason why a lot of guys, when they finally meet a girl they like, they tend to cock it up. And I'm the type of person that generally always blames the guy, unless the girl does something crazy or she cheats. I think if a relationship just fizzes out, or for example, the woman stops sleeping with the guy all of a sudden, if it's just sort of a fizzle out in the relationship, I generally think 99% of the time it is the guy's fault. He wasn't reading it. He gave a bit too much. He got a bit creeped out. And I think actually a lot of it applies to the lack of understanding of how male and female love actually works, specifically the concept of these timelines. And also the first point I mentioned about a man not seeing a woman for who she is, but seeing her as the ideal that he wants her to be, projecting that onto her, and then her not knowing how the hell she should act, and then getting annoyed, and then resentful, and then feeling guilt, and then she's out of there. So, little bit of help there from an older guy. If you're a younger guy having these problems, think about your past relationships, and then think about, was I not respecting the timeline? Was I projecting onto her? Was I treating her like the princess ideal I had in my head? Was I treating her like the person who she really is? Did I even get to know who she really was? Or was that ideal princess always the thing I was looking at and projecting? So let me know what you think. Let me know if you've ever had any experiences like that. Have you been humble enough to blame yourself or to audit yourself at least after every breakup? If I think back to the breakups I've had, and it has just been a fizzle out, you know, sometimes they end very amicably and you're still cool with each other, but you're kind of questioning like, but when did that attraction for me dip? And it was probably a mix between that princess projection and not understanding the timelines of male and female love, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I missed the mark, what your experiences have been like, what you think, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Take care.